The day had come when Princess Leia was commanded to marry Margrave a bird. It wasn't presented as a choice but as her duty, a sacrifice for the kingdom of Estia. "They will call you a hero," her mother had said. "You always claimed your body belongs to the royal family. This is the burden you must bear as a princess." Leia trembled. Her lips quivered as she tried to hold back her emotions. "But, Mother," she began, her voice breaking. Her protests were met with a cold insistence. "Leia, this is for Estia." The realization hit Leia like a wave. She wasn't being married. She was being offered as a token, a gift. The devastation threatened to overwhelm her, but Leia's despair was fleeting. With trembling hands, she reviewed the official marriage documents sent to the palace. "If I am to be sold off in an arranged marriage," she resolved, "then I will make sure to leave a stain that the royal family can never erase." Draped in a dark robe, Leia arrived at a place far removed from the dignity of the palace, a brothel. She observed her surroundings cautiously, her heart racing as her gaze fell on a figure waiting nearby. "Ah, that's the one," she thought. The man in question turned toward her. His voice was deep as he asked, "Are you my partner for tonight?" Leia nodded stiffly. This man didn't fit the image she'd imagined. There was nothing soft or elegant about him. His dark skin, sharp features, and deep voice carried an aura of danger. He must be Korkan, Leia realized. Korkan men were both feared and despised throughout the continent. Referred to as barbarians or as beasts, they were known for their animalistic temperaments, unpredictable and wild. Despite the fear they inspired, Korkans were prized for their unparalleled beauty and physical prowess. Even in Estia, where slavery was outlawed, they were secretly traded as luxury slaves. Leia had encountered such men before during raids on illegal traders, but this was her first time meeting one in such circumstances. Could he really be a prostitute? She wondered. Her musings were interrupted when the Korkan addressed her. His tone was laced with mockery. "Even a noble lady like you finds her way to a place like this. What's the matter? Are the noblemen around you too weak to satisfy you?" Leia's hands clenched at her sides. His words stung, but she held her composure. "Purpose," she echoed in her mind. "Does it even matter? This man is a stranger, a fleeting presence in my life. I will never see him again. If I can destroy the royal family's pristine image, then what does it matter how it's done?" Taking a deep breath, Leia straightened her back. "Then I suppose you'll be the man I'll spend the night with," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling of her heart. The Korkan smirked, his expression both teasing and predatory. "Shall I call you mistress then? Or would you prefer another title?" Without waiting for her response, he stepped closer, his hands moving to undress her. Leia flinched, but didn't retreat.
"Why?"
"Are you scared?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If you're afraid, why did you come here so boldly?" Leia's breath hitched. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, she forced herself to stand her ground. "Just do what you're here to do," she said, her voice colder than she felt. His smirk deepened. "Don't worry. I'll give you what you paid for," he replied, his tone both taunting and reassuring. Then, leaning in, he added softly, "Spread your legs." Leia stood frozen, her breath catching at the Korkan's blunt command. "Spread your legs." The words were crass, yet they didn't elicit the anger she thought they would. Instead, an unexpected shyness crept over her. "Why am I feeling like this?" she wondered, her thoughts swirling. "It doesn't feel bad, but still, why do I feel so vulnerable?" The man's sharp eyes seemed to soften slightly as he looked her over. "You're so skinny," he remarked, his voice calm yet inquisitive. "Are you eating properly?" Leia stiffened, her cheeks flushing. "Don't talk nonsense," she snapped. "Just take it off." She turned her head away, unwilling to meet his gaze. "And don't speak to me like that." The Korkan smirked at her defiance. "Like what?" he asked, a teasing edge in his voice. "To spread your legs?" His words were deliberate, laced with amusement. Is he mocking me? Leia thought, her irritation rising. He leaned closer, his demeanor suddenly more measured. Are you really so innocent? A damsel who knows nothing. His tone softened just slightly as he added, I'll show you a little generosity, mistress. Let me handle this step by step. Leah's eyes darted to him, her heartbeat quickening. She tried to steady her breathing, but the way he methodically began undressing her made it impossible. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost reverent. What are you staring at? He asked, his deep voice breaking her trance. Her eyes widened as realization struck. Wait, no way. Panic flickered in her chest. Something that big, it's going inside me? The Korkan chuckled at her reaction, his smirk widening. Not yet, he said firmly. Don't rush. Let's take this one step at a time. Before Leah could respond, he leaned in closer. His touch was firm yet unhurried, his lips brushing her skin. She gasped, a shiver running down her spine. The sensation was unfamiliar, strange, yet not unpleasant. What is this? Her thoughts felt muddled. His lips moved lower, his tongue grazing her with a precision that made her tremble. Leah bit her lip to stifle a sound, but the gasp escaped regardless. Her face burned. Why does this feel good? She wondered, mortified by her own reaction. The Korkan paused, looking at her with an unreadable expression. Don't whine, he said quietly, his tone suddenly more controlled. I'll make sure you enjoy this, too. Leah's body tensed as his touch moved elsewhere, igniting sensations she had never experienced before. A warmth spread through her, her mind battling between confusion and surrender. This is strange, but I don't hate it, she admitted to herself, her resolve wavering. Shall we take it lightly first? He murmured, his voice low and intimate. His gaze bore into hers, unwavering. Have you ever touched yourself before? Leah's breath caught again, but she couldn't answer. Her mind was reeling, her heart pounding in a way that felt both foreign and undeniable. Leah froze, the Korkan's bold question reverberating in her mind. Have you ever touched yourself before? His gaze was piercing, his voice calm yet laced with challenge. Her thoughts raced, her face heating at the audacity of his words. This man, he's like a beast, she thought, bewildered. He smirked, his tone teasing. It would be quite the sight to see you doing it yourself, but I suppose that's for another time. For now. His voice softened. I'll make you feel good. Relax. Leah's body tensed as his hands moved, his commands both unnerving and strangely comforting. Spread them nicely, he murmured. She hesitated, her heart hammering in her chest. I've never touched myself like this before, she admitted silently. Fear coiled in her stomach. Sensing her hesitation, he reassured her. It's all right. Just relax. Leah's breath hitched as his touch sent unfamiliar sensations coursing through her. The tension in her body melted away, replaced by a strange heat that made her tremble. He observed her reaction with a mix of amusement and intensity. Watching you makes me want to hear you scream, he said softly, his words both shocking and disarming. Leah gasped, her voice breaking. Stop. Please stop. He paused, his expression unreadable. Was it that good? He asked, his tone almost mocking. Embarrassment overwhelmed her. She couldn't meet his gaze, her face burning. How can I look at him now? His attention shifted momentarily as he muttered, Do women in Estia have to be this thin to be considered beautiful? You're walking around on these twig-like ankles. Stop it, she managed, her voice trembling. It's ticklish. His smirk returned. Why are you talking like we're finished already? I haven't even started yet. Her breathing quickened as he continued, the intensity of his actions building. Leah's mind spiraled, torn between fear and the inexplicable sensations overwhelming her. You're surprised, aren't you? He asked, his voice low. But I'm like this because of you. You'll have to take responsibility for it. Leah's eyes widened as she recalled the earlier moment when she'd accidentally brushed against him. I knew it was big, but this isn't normal. Her voice faltered. It won't fit. He raised an eyebrow, his expression firm. You're underestimating me, he replied. We're far from finished. Leah's breath came in shallow gasps as she struggled to comprehend what was happening. Each movement sent waves of pressure and sensation that left her mind reeling. Why is it so tight? She thought, trembling. The Korkan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. There's still a long way to go, he said, his tone steady but commanding. Leah could only close her eyes, her emotions a chaotic blend of resistance, vulnerability, and a strange, undeniable surrender. The Korkan's deep voice broke through Leah's haze. Aren't you underestimating me too much? The night is still long. Leah's breath caught as she tried to steady herself. Wait, she thought, feeling the undeniable pressure as her body adjusted. You took it all in, he murmured, a hint of surprise in his voice. Her body trembled, the unfamiliar sensations overwhelming her. His earlier intensity had softened, his movements now slow and deliberate. Is this your first time? He asked, pausing to study her face. Leah blinked, disoriented by the sudden shift in his demeanor. He seemed gentler. Does it hurt? He asked, his voice low and cautious. Her heart skipped a beat. Is he being considerate? She wondered, her thoughts clouded. Though it still felt overwhelming, like it reached deep into her stomach, there was a strange sense of relief as her body began to adjust. This is fine, she thought, convincing herself. But as she began to hope it was over, his smirk returned. Of course not, he said, cutting through her moment of reprieve. We've just started. Pain flared again as he moved, leaving Leah gasping. Her body felt heavy, unresponsive. Gentle, she murmured, her voice trembling. Be more gentle. But he didn't relent. His teasing tone only made her frustrations rise. Why are you doing this to me? She managed to ask, her voice breaking. I'm really trying here, he replied with mock sincerity. Being gentle? Leah clenched her hands into fists. So, this is what they call sexual intercourse? She thought bitterly. It was nothing like the soft, romantic notions she'd once imagined. Two people sharing warmth and tenderness in perfect harmony. Her thoughts were interrupted when his voice cut through again. You don't like it? But your body seems to tell a different story. Her face burned with embarrassment. You shameless beast. She stammered, her words barely coherent. The heat between them continued to rise, pushing Leah to her limit. Her mind felt hazy, unable to process the sensations or the situation. Am I really being used like this by a Korkan? She thought, her body trembling uncontrollably. Stop looking at me like that. She snapped, though her voice lacked strength. His gaze remained steady, his expression unreadable as the intensity continued to grow. It's so hot, she muttered under her breath, feeling the weight of exhaustion and disorientation setting in. The Korkan didn't slow, his voice steady despite her protests. I heard Korkans can't impregnate someone unless certain conditions are met, he said, his tone casual. But finishing inside? That's extremely rude. What? Leah gasped, her eyes widening. What are you doing? Are you insane? Ignoring her protests, he leaned closer, his words deliberate. Shall we try it from behind next? Leah's breath hitched as his unwavering confidence left her feeling completely unmoored. The night was far from over, and she was losing herself to the unrelenting force of his presence. Leah stirred, her body aching as fragments of the night came rushing back. She winced, her breathing shallow. Wait, not like this, Ong. The memory of her protests echoed in her mind, blending with the overwhelming sensations she had endured. Her gaze darted around the dimly lit room, and a chill ran down her spine. It wasn't a dream, she realized. Noticing her clean body, she muttered, Did he wash me up? Shame and disbelief clawed at her. I can't believe I did something like that, she thought, covering her face. It had been painful, exhausting, yet undeniable. A part of her admitted it had felt good. The weight of her actions settled over her. I won't be able to forget this. In some twisted way, I got what I wanted. I lost my virginity. I've tarnished my character and turned myself into a worthless trophy. Leah exhaled shakily and stood, determination mingling with despair. I should go back now. That's all I need to do. As she moved toward the door, his voice stopped her. Where are you going? Our night together has ended, she said, keeping her tone as even as possible. His smirk returned. Then let's do it one more time. Leah froze, disbelief flashing in her eyes. What are you talking about? Her eyes scanned his body as her mind wandered. His physique was immaculate, too clean, in fact. Looking at you now, she began hesitantly, why don't you have any tattoos? All the Korkins I've seen have them. He tilted his head, amused by her curiosity. What are you staring at? It's just unbecoming, she said, trying to mask her interest. The Korkin smiled faintly. Let's exchange questions then. Answer mine, and I'll answer yours. Leah hesitated, wary but intrigued. Why, he began, his tone shifting to something more serious. Is the purity of a bride so important in the Estian kingdom? Leah stiffened, his question cutting deep. She took a breath before responding. Because, in Estia, a bride's purity symbolizes her value. The higher her status, the more it reflects on her family's reputation. A bride who fails to protect her purity gives her husband the right to annul the marriage. Her voice grew quieter as she added, I had my reasons for giving it away. I didn't want to surrender it to an old man 25 years my senior. I wanted it to serve as a slap in the royal family's face for selling me like a high-grade trophy. Her gaze dropped, her words trembling. But above all, I wanted to escape the torment of my life, to break free from the sacrifices I've made for them. The Korkin studied her silently, but Leah couldn't meet his eyes. Instead, she laughed bitterly. I suppose I can't answer that properly. He pressed. Didn't you want to run away? Leah paused, considering his words. Run away, she repeated. The royal family is rotten to the core. They'll collapse the moment I'm gone. I could do it if I really wanted to, find someone to help me and disappear. Her voice hardened. But I don't want to live my life on the run.
No.
I don't want escape. I want revenge. I want to see the royal family pay for everything they've done to me. And even more than that. Her voice faltered, but she forced herself to continue. I despise the part of me that spent her life sacrificing everything for them. Leah clenched her fists, her heart heavy. All I want is to finish what I need to do. Then, I'll end it all. Her final words hung in the air, quiet but resolute. I want to die. Leah's quiet declaration, I want to die, hung heavily in the air. The Korkin's lips curved into a faint smirk as he replied casually, I'll tell you about Korkins without tattoos next time. It'll be quite the story. But until then, make sure you stay alive. His nonchalant tone felt almost jarring in their intimate state. Leah's face flushed as she thought, goodness, how can he speak so casually when we're both completely naked? Trying to shift her focus, he offered, what should we eat? Leah shook her head. I don't need to eat. Why not? He asked, concern flickering in his voice. No appetite? You still need to eat. You're far too thin. Reluctantly, Leah gave in. I just need to eat, right?
Fine.
But stop staring at me like that. Her voice hardened as she added, if you never want to leave that bed, keep looking at me like this. He chuckled, and for a moment, they shared a strange, fleeting camaraderie. After their meal, Leah leaned back, feeling both full and oddly content. I ate more than I usually do, she admitted, though she tried to hide the small satisfaction it brought her. I had fun, the Korkin said with an amused grin. You're quite generous with your payment, mistress. Let's meet again. Leah's heart jolted at his words, but she quickly dismissed them. Meet again? Sorry, but that will never happen. As the night wore on, Leah lay awake, her thoughts swirling. I won't be able to sleep much. Tomorrow will be even busier. Yet, a strange sense of calm lingered in her chest. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she had been herself. Angry, instinctive, and unapologetically free. How long has it been since I felt this way? Like I could truly be me? No pretense, no agonizing worries. Despite the fleeting relief, a pang of regret tugged at her. It doesn't matter anyway. I won't see him again. Still, I should have asked for his name. The next day began briskly. Leah busied herself with documents, preparing for an upcoming meeting. She found a note waiting for her. Why don't we have a meal together? It's been a while. I have a gift for you, so come to the queen's palace later. Her stomach sank as she read the note. I don't want to go in, she thought, pausing outside the ornate doors of the palace. A voice called out, Your Highness, the princess is here to see you. Leah straightened herself and stepped forward. Her mother's voice greeted her, smooth and calculated as always. I was waiting for you, the queen said. Keep your head still, came the sharp command, cutting through Leah's thoughts. You must try your best not to appear shallow, her etiquette instructor added, voice stern. Leah adjusted her posture as instructed. Fix your posture. Be more dignified. Are you not the princess of Estia? She sighed internally, but complied, biting back the frustration that threatened to rise. Later, in the queen's palace, her mother, Saradina, greeted her with an elegant yet imposing presence. Leah, the queen said with her signature authority, call me mother. The conversation turned to the ornate gifts sent by Margrave a bird. These arrived recently, the queen said, gesturing to the lavish offerings. At first, I refused them, but the Margrave ensured they reached the palace anyway. She motioned for Leah to approach. Come here. This looks good on you, she said, holding up an exquisite accessory. It's as if it were made for you. The Margrave has an excellent eye. Thank you, mother, Leah replied, masking her discomfort with a polite smile. The queen sighed. It's a shame Blaine couldn't join us. He seems to enjoy hunting far too much these days. Her tone softened as she added, he even promised to catch you a fox, didn't he? Yes, Leah replied hesitantly. He's always been so thoughtful toward me, the queen continued, a note of pride in her voice. It makes me happy that my son holds such affection for his mother. Though, she added with a sly smile, I fear it might make his future wife jealous. Leah felt a pang of nausea rise. I think I might get indigestion. Eat more, the queen instructed curtly. You're far too thin. Even a withered tree branch has more flesh than you. Yes, perhaps a little more, Leah muttered, forcing herself to take another bite. The conversation eventually shifted toward Leah's impending marriage. Your wedding is just around the corner, the queen reminded her. I hope you haven't forgotten how to control your eating habits. Leah's mind wandered as her mother's voice faded into the background. The Estia Kingdom, a place renowned for its culture and beauty, is nothing more than a gilded cage, she thought bitterly. Behind the royal family's facade lay a corruption so deep that its authority had eroded to almost nothing. The Margrave a bird, with his control over the military and financial resources, was the kingdom's true power. The royal family's decision to offer her to him as a political pawn was proof of their desperation. Later, a discussion about tax reforms arose during a meeting. Leah remained composed, though the topic stirred unease within her. Opposition from the nobles is not to be underestimated, she warned her advisors. Especially from Margrave a bird. One official presented a bird's request for tax reductions, citing the Korkans as a pretext. Leah's expression darkened. His greed knows no bounds, she said curtly. A quieter voice murmured, an invasion from the Korkans might even save us financially. We cannot base decisions on unverified claims, Leah countered. Verify the necessity of a bird's request and ensure a proper decision is made. Yes, Your Highness, one of the officials replied with a bow. Leah nodded, already considering the possibility of visiting a bird's residence to address the matter personally. The atmosphere shifted abruptly when Baroness Sinnel entered the chamber, visibly anxious. Your Highness, she began, her voice trembling slightly, we received a letter from Korkan. Leah's eyes narrowed. What does it say? The Baroness hesitated before continuing. Korkan wishes to pursue an amicable relationship with Estia. The King of Korkan has expressed his desire to visit with his envoys for a friendly settlement. Leah's heart skipped a beat as the implications of the letter settled over the room. The Korkans, a mysterious race said to have the blood of beasts coursing through their veins, were thought to have roamed the western deserts long before recorded history. They lived in tribes, each embodying the traits of a different beast. The largest and most infamous of these tribes was ruled by a singular, formidable sovereign, the King of the Korkans. Many rulers feared the Korkans for their strength, labeling them barbarians. Yet the disdain of nobles stemmed from more than just the Korkans' raw power. Korkans deeply cherished their chosen partners, and when one set their eyes on someone, they would go to any lengths to claim them. This practice, often labeled as predatory marriage, had sparked outrage and served as a convenient excuse for noble families to wage war against them. However, behind the facade of moral indignation, nobles had ulterior motives. Korkans, valued as slaves, fetched exorbitant prices. Despite repeated attempts to subdue the Korkans, the nobles often faced humiliating defeats, forced to retreat before the harsh desert climate and the tribe's unyielding tactics. After a long and grueling conflict, an uneasy peace was established. Tensions flared once again when news of the Korkan king reached the Estian court. It was rumored that he had slain his predecessor to ascend the throne. His reputation as a fierce and violent man made reconciliation seem unlikely. Leah listened with growing unease as the council discussed the implications of his visit. The Estia family shares a border with the Korkans. If war breaks out, it will be a massacre, one official warned. Others speculated on the king's motives. Is he seeking conflict to indulge in his love for war? Leah, lost in thought, couldn't help but recall the unsettling details she had overheard. Why had the king been visiting the brothels of Estia? What could he possibly be searching for in such places? The council's deliberations reached a grim conclusion. We have no choice but to accept his demands, one noble declared. The Aberd family, infamous for their Korkan trafficking, viewed the visit as an opportunity. Savages, someone scoffed. They're no better than beasts. Leah's stomach churned. I'm glad the king of the Korkans hasn't yet met a man like that, she thought. Yet, the peace that had been tenuously maintained for so long seemed on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, in the Korkan camp, preparations for the king's visit were complete. Lord Isha Khan stood amidst his advisors, reflecting on the night he had spent with her. It was unexpected, he mused. I only wanted to confirm an old memory. The princess, though veiled in secrecy and acting as a common prostitute, had betrayed her naivety. Her fear and clumsiness were apparent. It must have been her first time. Isha Khan shook off the memory with difficulty. She probably doesn't remember, he thought. The Isha Khan she met back then is a completely different man now. His expression hardened as he turned to his advisors. First, he said decisively, let's pay the princess a visit. The palace bustled with activity as preparations for the banquet to welcome the Korkans neared completion. Servants hurried about, ensuring every detail was perfect, while Leah observed the chaos around her. More nobles than expected will be attending, one maid whispered. They must be eager to witness the meeting between Count Aberd and the king of the Korkans. Leah nodded thoughtfully. The count has been a loyal ally of the royal family for years, but peace with the Korkans is crucial. If we can end the conflict, it will solidify Blaine's position as crown prince. Her musings were interrupted by another servant, who smirked. What if the king of the Korkans falls for you at first sight, princess? Leah flushed and quickly excused herself, her unease growing. Leah's stomach growled faintly as she wandered through the corridors. I haven't eaten much today. I thought I could hold out until the banquet, but this is going to be harder than I imagined. Everything must go perfectly. There's no room for mistakes. Her thoughts drifted. It said that if a beast is shackled from a young age, it grows so accustomed to its chains that it doesn't even try to break free, even when it has the strength to do so. It isn't love or fear of its master. It's simply a habit, born of years of taming. Leah sighed, the image of the queen creeping into her mind. Even after deciding to leave everything behind, I'm still afraid of her. She's haunted me for so long. The banquet began with the grand arrival of Isha Khan, the king of the Korkans. He moved through the room with a calm, calculated demeanor that belied his reputation. Leah's heart sank as his golden eyes found hers and lingered. Does he know who I am? Did he recognize me from the start? Memories of their past encounter surfaced, overwhelming her. I gave my purity to him, as a prostitute. Did he approach me intentionally, knowing my true identity? What if he uses this against me? Leah steadied herself, forcing her breathing to slow. For now, I need to stay calm. I can't let him see how shaken I am. Nearby, whispers floated through the air. The king keeps looking at the princess. Could they know each other? Impossible, another replied. But they do seem oddly well-suited. Hush, a voice hissed. Don't jinx her into a predatory marriage. Leah ignored the murmurs, focusing instead on her composure as Isha Khan approached. The king's formal greeting echoed in the hall. Thank you for the reception. I am Isha Khan, king of the Korkans. Leah watched him closely, marveling at how convincingly he feigned ease. The Korkans and the Estia kingdom have been enemies for so long. Is his presence here because of me? Yet she doubted his intentions were romantic. To him, I'm probably just a weakness on the enemy's side, a foolish pawn to exploit because of my rash actions. She straightened, her inner turmoil hidden behind a calm exterior. I am Leah du Estia, she said confidently, though her thoughts churned. How am I supposed to handle this? Leah felt a mix of uncertainty and frustration as the banquet continued. What should I do now? She thought, trying to steady her nerves after the formal greetings. Despite the ceremony's surface pleasantries, she couldn't shake the feeling of Isha Khan's eyes constantly on her. Why did he keep staring at me throughout the entire ceremony? She had hoped their paths would never cross again, but now, it seemed the past was not so easily forgotten. The banquet hall was alive with conversation and laughter, but Leah couldn't focus. The generous payment she had received earlier from Isha still weighed on her mind. What did he want from me? She wondered, barely able to sleep the night before, her thoughts consumed with what was to come. As she walked past the garden, the moonflowers caught her attention. They're so beautiful, almost ready to bloom fully, she noted, but her peace was short-lived. A servant mentioned that the king of the Korkans was known to smoke tobacco for its spiritual significance. Did the smoke smell this sweet before? Leah mused, her mind still swirling with the king's presence. Isha Khan approached her again. Your Highness, what should we do now? Leah hesitated, feeling a rising discomfort. I need to leave before this gets any more complicated. She quickly excused herself, but Isha Khan blocked her path. Where are you going, princess? We probably need to talk. She stiffened, a flash of anger rising. How rude, she snapped. In Estia, touching a royal without permission is a serious breach of etiquette. I expect you to follow Estia's customs while you're here. Isha Khan's response was calm. Did I make a mistake? For the Korkans, hunting is a way of life. When someone turns their back, our instincts tell us to pursue. Leah's breath caught in her throat. Did he just compare me to prey? Leah wasn't sure what to make of his invitation to be his guide through the palace. If I accept, rumors will spread that the king is pursuing me. Despite her reservations, she still felt drawn to him. Something about his presence felt inevitable. Your Highness, it's fine. Please go in first, she said, forcing a polite smile. I must attend to our guest. As she walked away, she realized she had been avoiding people too much, trying to keep her distance from the king. Isha Khan caught up with her again. Did you know from the start who I was? Did you know I was the princess of Estia? She stopped, turning to face him. What if I did? He asked, his voice low and teasing. What would you do if I told you I approached you knowingly? Leah felt a chill run through her. Does he plan to exploit my weaknesses? She couldn't afford to show weakness. I want to know your intentions, Isha Khan. What do you truly want from me? Isha Khan smiled. Call me by my name. Don't call me the king of the Korkans. Isha Khan calmly addressed her, his tone deliberate. Call me Ashokan, not the king of the Korkans. Leah hesitated but complied. Lord Ashokan. That's better, he said with a slight nod. I'd prefer you treat me with the same respect. Leah raised an eyebrow. Are you going to treat me like a princess? Ashokan smirked. I'll show you respect as the princess of Estia, but let's leave what happened in the brothel behind us. Leah's face hardened. And if I refuse? Will you remain angry with me? He shrugged casually. Do whatever you like. With a deep breath, Leah finally relented. All right, I'll treat you as a princess in public, but rather than pretending to be a naive and pure princess, it suits you better to act as the woman you truly are. Leah stiffened at the insult but refused to react. Please refrain from making rude remarks if you expect to be treated as a prince. And if you touch me again like before. Before she could finish, Ishakin interrupted, his gaze sharp. What happened to you? You've lost weight. Haven't you been eating? Leah stiffened, her thoughts whirling. This is exactly what I was talking about. I'm fine, she said coldly, but I expect you to understand my position, Ishakin. I want you to keep quiet about that day and we'll move on. Ishakin was quiet for a moment before handing her a piece of fruit. Try this. It's sweet. How long has it been since you've had something so sweet? Leah hesitated but took a bite. It's a dried date palm fruit. It's delicious, she remarked, though her thoughts were far from the food. I was so hungry, she muttered. I ate it all without realizing. I want one thing from you, Ishakin said, his tone more serious. Eat everything I gave you. This is food I can't find here in Estia. The few times I've tasted Korkan cuisine, it's always from the slaves. Leah was caught off guard. I wish I could eat more, but I've already had too much. I need to prepare for tomorrow's banquet, and I can't afford to be bloated. Ishakin gave a soft chuckle. You can always plant the seeds in the soil. Her emotions were tangled as she looked at him. Everything he does makes me feel embarrassed, she thought, a mix of confusion and frustration swirling within her. No matter what he does, it feels wrong, but I don't really hate it. Ishakin, noticing her discomfort, approached again with a small treat in his hand. Come closer.
Take this.
The Korkans believe that sweet things drive away evil spirits, but we just enjoy sweets. Leah looked at him, surprised by the gesture. I thought you only ate raw meat. I never expected you to carry something like this. No, thank you, she replied. Why not? You're skipping meals, aren't you? This isn't for your own good. Leah sighed, frustrated by the situation. Promise me you won't treat me improperly here in the palace. Forget about what happened in the brothel. Ishakin narrowed his eyes slightly. I'll need you to be more specific. I'm just a barbarian, after all, without much education. Leah turned away, unable to hide her irritation. Things like grabbing my arms suddenly or putting your fingers in my mouth. Ishakin stepped closer, a teasing smile tugging at the corner of his lips.
Why?
Would you like more of that? He leaned in slightly, his voice playful. Should I feed you more? Leah froze. Wait, Lord Ishakin. It wasn't that Leah had always been estranged from Blaine from the very beginning. Blaine, because she had felt very lonely back then.
Blaine.
She had been very happy that a boy her age had become a new family member. Back then, she believed they could truly become a family. So you were here. Why didn't you come to class? Mother was worried about you. I hate studying. Hunting is more fun. I also hate studying. Is there even anybody in this world who likes it? But the smarter you become and the more you know, the more things you can do. Blaine, you have things you want, right? Like a new toy or a snack from a land far away, something you really want.
Yes.
Then don't give up and work hard so that you can get what you want. Your Nuna will help you. Don't forget that I will help you. Back then, Leah knew she shouldn't have said that.
Ouch.
That hurts. I told you not to interrupt me when I'm talking. Why did you embarrass me in front of the teacher, Nuna? Blaine, I don't think you're aware. I was helping you. Shut up. If you really want to help me, stay quiet. I understand. I won't say anything anymore. Good morning, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. I don't know what the customs of Korkan are. In Estia, it's generally frowned upon for unmarried women to be alone with a man. Nunum. At least he's polite when the King of Korkan is here. He only calls me Nuna when he feels like it. I was looking for you to have a talk. Let us go to a quiet place. Yes, Your Highness. Wait, should I help? I don't want to be dragged away. I want to ask for help, but can I really trust him? Don't forget, he is the King of Korkan. Enk, what were you doing? I asked what you were doing with that jerk. Please let loose a little. Your Highness. Do not shake your bottom in front of the Korkans, understood, Nunims?